And so some UFO researchers just, are pained by that perception and just think I don't like that. That's crazy. And the idea that they're like dimensional vessels is also painful for a lot of UFO researchers. So I think it is significant to draw that that illusion between the two, to say there's a relationship between those two things and they can be confused. And if something is going to move through the sky and it's unidentified and it's flying, we call it a UFO, but it doesn't mean that it's a craft with beings from another star system in. It could be a nature spirit. It could be an advanced ascended human being. It could be anything. It could be a part of the natural fourth dimensional order that we just have no clue what it is. So, yeah, again, is it human or is it extraterrestrial is another false dichotomy that we have to collapse, really, because it's a lot more fascinating and complex than that.
Yeah. I agree with you. Prana, chi, whatever you want to call it, it's the missing stuff. It's that life force, personally. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Could I ask you just one question?
Sure.
You spoke in a recent interview about a group of people in Pembrokeshire.
Yeah.
Did one of the older members spend his life moving objects? I just met him, that's all, and I just wanted to know whether it was him.
I'll say this, that the people I'm talking about, it's a general community that is spread throughout some of that place, particularly, from some of the suburban areas, but also out to the peninsula as well. And there seems to be a concentration of people out there, and it's not escaped my notice that if you want to talk about esoteric lineage, that is where a lot of the Druidic peoples went when the Romans came to Britain, and it's rumoured that a lot of their offspring genetically still there. So even though many people may not be aware of it, the strength of spiritual and artistic community there is very strong.
Yeah, I agree. I met an interesting man down there.
Thanks, Paul. We've also interviewed Costas Danosum. I think he was one of the 5 students of John Chang, and obviously, I'm not sure if you're familiar with John Chang. He moves things and creates fires with his hand and using chi. So, interesting stuff. Yeah, Neil, we just got one final question for you. We at the WebBot Forum obviously follow the line of work of Cliff High and the WebBots, and we were just curious to know if you are familiar with Cliff and also the WebBot premise that everybody's psychic and that they leak psychic information about the future and, among other things, into the words they use and the body language they do, etc.
You know what? I'll be totally honest with you. I don't know an awful lot about Cliff's work. I think in the past I've been on one or two alternative media networks or whatever where he's been on as well. And I think I've listened to something a little while ago, maybe a year or two ago, but I'm not actually that familiar with it, which is ironic considering where I am now. I should be all kind of sensible and familiarise myself with that, but I've unfortunately not had the time recently. But no, I'm not familiar with his work at the more core level, if you like. I know that there's this software that can track patterns, and there's a set of algorithms that look into prophetic dissimulation of information and so on. And I also know that there's a blank spot in the near future, and that's about it, really.
The reason why we ask you is you're obviously a great thinker as well, and Cliff uses linguistics, which you're obviously a master of, and he uses linguistics in the sense that the words that people leak out is actually possibly psychic information that comes out, especially because a lot of the time the words that we use are subconsciously placed there. So what do you think of the premise that people are psychic, and number one, they leak it out in their everyday tasks, including the linguistic words they use?
Yeah, the principle of that is absolutely, no problem with that at all. And in fact, I think I could pretty much challenge anyone who had an issue with what we would refer to as the psychic connection between individuals. Give me somebody for half a day and I could completely disprove any notions to the reverse of that. It's so obvious and it's so apparent. And with a little tuning, it's so evidenced in daily life that I think pretty much everyone accepts that now. And it's through accepting that as a principle that we find ourselves looking at multidimensionality for some people for the first time to say, well, how does that function? Functions very simply by you move consciousness to a fourth density state, and you can move that across any space and through any time period instantly. So it's the mechanics of it, in principle, from a philosophical perspective, I think are relatively explainable. How you actually do that in terms of the physics of it and the quantum physics of it, I also think is relatively explainable. And there are some books on that. Laszlo's book about the Akashic Field is a good introduction to that, of how the physics of that works. And I think it's by certain elements of the shadow governments and control systems and stuff, that physics has been in use for like 60 years now. It's nothing new. But what's more fascinating than that is that the psychic aspects of people and the telekinetic or psychokinetic aspects of human beings is like something that we always had and that we've only just recently lost, really. So that we've had more time of having it than we've had not having it. So I think in the last few thousand years, not having those abilities at your fingertips for everybody is actually quite unusual and quite peculiar. And I think that there are some people now who are moving around the world who you can meet and go and see and listen to them talk, who can show that and show those abilities. So it's directly experienceable now. And if anyone cares to do that, and certainly for those who need the proof, and there's nothing wrong with that, it's not always brilliant, but sometimes it's appropriate to see that with your own eyes, you can go and meet these people. They're around.
We have been speaking with Neil Kramer from neilkramer.com. Thank you for your time tonight, Neil. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Otherwise, bad luck, mate. On behalf of Fox and all the members of the WebBot Forum, many of which are autodidacts, we thank you, sir. Before I pass it over to Chipper Dog for a closing poem, in our tradition of pie loving and pie making, may you and your family have many pies to come. Chipper Dog, take it away.
Thank you, Jules. Neil, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciated the sensuality with which you described the plants and a man's love of a woman. I wrote this to my wife. Returns to sender, addressing the known. Writing life's sweet memories on outside leaves of envelopes, licking so fondly as released, sealed within kiss a missive deep. Flowing words of heart-held touches caress missing you so very much, and yet to live within a field of such an awe-full wonder's gentle clutch that vibrates ever silently in growing tones to which come free a resonance that tends to be wrapped inside hearts lived lovingly, that stamps upon unmetered edge in patternings that seem to pledge a modest sloped fringes wild sedge to grow what bakes hot-fired bread, unchecked for in some little box for hints of what are stumbling blocks that turn into those unkeyed stalks, head hidden and kept under locks. And then, to sign in flourishing motion that brings nourishing of energies unhampered spring, to breathe deep in joy, to loudly sing, and sent upon its way. Namaste.
What a wonderful way to end a program.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks, guys. I enjoyed talking to all of you. Thanks for your time and your thoughts and questions and your authenticity. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. It's been an honor.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.